Hi, and welcome to Parents Using Human Design, the podcast for conscious parents who are unlearning the old ways and rewriting the rules with self-trust, intuition, and a whole lot of grace. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Bryn, and we're just two moms exploring what it means to parent with presence, permission, and the wisdom of human design as our compass.
Whether you're brand new to human design or deep in your experiment, this space is for you.
We're not here to tell you how to parent. We're here to support you in becoming more you so you can raise your kids with more ease, connection, and authenticity. And today we have a fun topic that everyone wants to do, but I don't think any of us are experts at. And that is letting go of control, or even just attempting to let go of control. Because I think as parents, especially when we have this topic of using human design or any tool where you can have this potential of like, oh, I can use this tool and then I can be a better parent, right? Quote unquote, better parent, or I can, have this particular outcome, then there's this tendency within us to want to control the outcomes. Like we talk about with human design, like how can we prevent conditioning, or like prevent, I think in our lives, we want to break cycles, so how can we prevent trauma? And there are only so many things that we can control, so I think this is a really rich topic that every parent can relate to.
Yes, and I think that if you're self-aware at all, you've noticed times in your parenting journey of, oh my gosh, like I am trying to control the situation and realizing I have no control over it, right? So I'm super excited to dive into this topic too, because um, the the bigger picture, the bigger plan, whatever you believe in, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, um, we're not in control of everything around us. The only thing we can control is us.
Yeah,
React.
and not even that sometimes.
Right, right. When you talk about, I talk about triggers and being triggered and like our automatic nervous system response, right? Um,
Yeah.
yes, it's this fine line of like controlling that, but also letting it be,
Mm.
letting what's there be there without judgment, without criticism, without shame, all of those things. So, I don't even know where to begin, Bryn.
Well, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this morning, and it started last night. It's this idea of like even coming here today. I knew we were going to be recording. Get up, get yourself together, like be presentable. And my 2-year-old last night didn't fall asleep until 9 o'clock. And so when I went in this morning, he had an absolute conniption, like a full temper tantrum, 2-year-old toddler tantrum at 7 o'clock this morning when I'm trying to wake him up. And it just sets the tone for the day. And we were talking, I'm PMSing, and this is new for me too, being PMSing and being in perimenopause. It's just different, showing up different. And that makes it very hard to control mood and to not be in reactivity as a parent. And there's just so much judgment, self-judgment around that of how I could act differently. But even just like I can't control how the morning was going to go. I just couldn't. And so here I am, I'm just showing up, doing the best I can. And like, he was up at 4:30 and then again, fighting. And it shows up. I mean, it doesn't even have to be so dramatic. I think it shows up all the time, but really, truly, like, I think we wanted to have this conversation early on in the podcast series of just not trying to use human design to control all the outcomes, or like we say, you can't prevent conditioning, and we're not really here even to prevent conditioning. Like, this is going to happen. What we're here to do is help your kids see through that as it happens, and as they grow into adolescence and adulthood and beyond. It's like doing our best to help them have the skills to figure it out on their own, rather than us preventing all of these things from happening.
Yeah, I love that you brought in, I mean, we're talking about like the conditioned responses, right? And that's what control is. The need for control is a conditioned response, right? So when we look at kids who haven't been crazy conditioned yet, right? Like newborn babies, they're not trying to control anything. They're just trying to express themselves. They're just trying to get what they need. And from our conditioned place as parents, we can often look at it because in my family, I know this has been said a lot of they're just trying to manipulate you. And I'm like, a little infant or a little toddler, that's not what they're doing. They're literally trying to get their needs met. That's what they know, right? And that's coming from that conditioned body, the meat suit, if you will, of like I've been manipulated, I've been hurt, I've gone through some stuff, so I'm going to project that onto my kid, right? And I think it's crazy important to recognize that the need for control is simply a conditioned response, and that's not our highest self. That's not our being doing that. Um, that innate inner self doesn't have the need for control. We learn that through our environment and our experiences. And I don't know about you, I'm going to bring this in because it's coming in pretty strong right now. Of when I first had kids, I had a huge sense of need for control, right? And I know that it's because of my childhood trauma. I was controlled as a child. I was forced to do things that I did not want to do that were very harmful, right? That was a sense of control that I didn't have at all in my own body. I didn't have control of what was happening to me. So going into I'm getting emotional.
Of
Going
course.
into parenthood, I didn't even know about my trauma. Bryn, you know a little bit about this, but for those of you listening, like my trauma was so pushed down. My nervous system did such an amazing job at protecting me that I didn't remember any of it. So going into parenting with my first kid, I didn't know all of this existed. I was only aware of what was happening in the moment, and I absolutely had that need for control. I can think when my daughter was a newborn and when she would cry, babies cry. And I'm a pediatric nurse, like I'm used to babies crying. It's fine. I can help them. I know what to give them, da 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 da. But when kid, my own blood, right, was crying and I couldn't help her, I couldn't stop the crying. It was like a intense, I have to control this, right? Very scary place to be as a new mom who has no idea what's going on inside her. um, I don't know where I was going with that, but I felt like that was coming in really strong to share that because when we aren't even aware of our past conditioning, it's really hard to recognize in the moment that it's even there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and a lot of times becoming a parent is what brings it up to begin with.
yeah.
Yeah. I love when dogs come, when the animals come.
She is so in tune with energy. It's insane.
Like, Mama, you're feeling
Yeah,
emotional.
exactly. And she's really needy because she's kind of a pup. But anyway, what did you just say? Will you repeat that again?
I don't ever know what I say when
Yeah.
it comes out of my mouth and I never remember what I say.
Yes. And I often wonder, is that because I'm dissociated or is it like the higher being coming in, right? Like, because I think it could be one of two things.
Well, so I see this really commonly when people have a defined throat center, that it tends to just kind of come through and there's less self-consciousness, or just it's like it just kind of comes out, versus someone who has an undefined throat center where they might be more aware of what they're saying. Right.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
you have a defined throat. I have a defined throat. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed that as a trend. I'm not going to say that I don't
Yeah.
want to generalize because I think everyone's different. And again, where have you been conditioned? But yeah, I think this topic came from, it hit me. I was in the car. I sent you a voice note. I'm like, this is what we need to talk about. It's really this need to remind people, parents, to allow that grace in and not to get over attached to any system, whether it's human design or another one, around, oh, I can use this as a tool to fix everything, to control outcomes. It's interesting. I did not use human design. I knew about it, but I wasn't into it with my first. I also had very significant postpartum depression. So there were other influences there at play in terms of trying to control things because the reactivity was so high. The fear, the anxiety was so intense, right? That there was a lot of survival instinct in there. And then as we've, my kids have gotten a little bit older, and of course, certainly with my 2-year-old, I have been actively using human design, and it's really fun to look at these elements of, oh, okay, well, here's their incarnation cross, or here's, their defined centers, or I can look at those things. I also notice a tendency to want to say, oh, well, it has to be that way. Well, my daughter has markets environment. We have to design her room in this particular way. Like we have to show up in this particular way, because if I don't, then she's never going to learn what environment is correct for her. And it is these moments of control, or it might be as simple as like, I have a hard time letting my kids cook with me. I have a really hard time with that because I don't like mess. And it's been one of the greatest, and I mean great in terms of size, right? Like it's been great. It's not been fun.
Yeah.
It's been a very challenging lesson for me around messiness, because I just tend to be more particular that way. And that's survival. Maybe some of it is innate, but also I think there's a lot of survival instinct in there, and conditioning, and just my own responses and reactions to things, to just allow them to be kids and to make messes and to not, freak out when messes happen, because I have to remember both my babies have a 6 line, which means that they're in their first phase, which is a 3-line expression. So if you're newer to human design, in your profile, if you have a 6 line, it's triphasic. And so depending on your age is how it's going to show up in the world. Right now, they're in the experimentation phase. So they need to like have their hands in things. They need to do it their own way. And it's really challenging for me as a parent. I have to constantly remind myself, and I'm not perfect about this, but it's like that, reminding myself that I can use this as a tool to help me bring in compassion for myself as much as for them, if like, okay, they need this experimentation. And also recognizing that I'm not going to be the best place for them to make messes, right? Like I'm not going to provide that environment in a way that maybe would foster the fullest, highest expression of it. And that's why even with my work, it's I know myself, right? It's like hard for me to say this out loud, but like I have them in childcare intentionally, because I know I need my time, but also I know that there are places like this of like being able to make mess and being able to experiment things, that they're going to have that, they're going to be in that environment that I won't be able to give them, so they can learn, and I can let go of some of the control by honestly like handing it off to someone else. And I do realize that I say that with privilege, that I can afford to put them in childcare, and it's always only ever been part-time, but it's still internally very difficult. Like I've had nannies come over, and sometimes I'll have a sitter, and I just remember one day my sitter grabbed, and I love her, and there's no judgment here, but she grabbed one of our glass jars, and then she got the lid and she poked a bunch of holes in it, and they went out and like put dirt and sand and grass and like caught ladybugs and put them in there. And I was like, that's so cute. We have an abundance of lids. I don't need to be freaking out about our drinking. You know what I mean? Like it was like, oh, I would never have done that. The joy it brought to my kid's life was just worth it. You know what I mean? But it's just funny, these moments of like, I just need to control that.
I think so many parents can relate to this. I know I can, right? I was the mom that same, you can't be in the kitchen with me. If you are, it's not going to go well, because I'm just going to be trying to. In fact, my daughter's now 13, right? And I was not on my own personal development journey when she was little. And she still doesn't like to be in the kitchen because she knows that it's not fun. It wasn't fun when she was little. However, my son, as I had him, he's a few years younger, 2.5 years younger than her. I was stepping more into this understanding and like personal development stuff. And he loves to be in the kitchen with me because I've let go of some of that, right? So number one, I want to point out, like, yes, it's so important to incorporate your village and use the resources that you have accessible to you, right? Like sending them to daycare, having the sitter be able to do these fun things with them, things that you might not be able to do in the moment. And if you're feeling a call to be able to let go of some of that control, there's ways to do that, right? There's there's ways to do that. And I think it's really important, no matter what camp you're in, whether you're in the camp, I can't do this and I need support from an external standpoint. I'm sending my kids somewhere where they can do these things. But also, I really want to lean into that. And I need support in figuring out what that looks like. There's no shame in that either. There's no shame in either of them. I just wanted to point that out because I've been in both sides, right? I was always the mom of, I will never be a stay-at-home mom. There's no way in hell you're going to keep me home with my kids. I love them dearly, but no, like I can't be that mom. And then as they've gotten older, things change. Obviously, situations change. Their independence changes, all the things. But I've grown into my own person more so as a mom. And like I would hands down homeschool them. I would homeschool them and we've had conversations about it. So stay tuned if that ever happens. But now my daughter, she's in 8th grade. We don't have a whole lot of time left for that.
I mean, that's encouraging for me because I also had the mantra, no babies without nannies. And that was always before I had kids. And then I had kids and I was like, yeah, no babies without nannies. It's held true. But I also say this in the same breath that I just told you this morning, Courtney, that I'm going to bring my son home and really tighten up my work schedule so that I can spend more time with him. And I never thought I'd be that person. I don't know about homeschooling. It feels like a reach, but maybe when I get to the level of independence that you have, your kids being a little bit older.
Well, then it's kind of like of course, they're more independent. Of course, I want to homeschool them. It's not like such a process but I don't know. I've never, when my kids were littler, it was I love them so much, but I can't spend time with them. I don't know how to spend time with them. I don't know how to be present with them, right? I don't know how to be in the sensory bin. I have to say this. My mother-in-law is an ex-teacher. She retired as a teacher, right? And she knows all the importance of all the textile and all the things. And she would bring bins of things like you're talking sand and just toys and da da da. And I was like, oh, I don't want that in my house. I don't want the sand, da 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 da. I'm so grateful that she's in our lives and that she was able to provide that for them. Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought.
That happens a lot around here, not just you.
I think it happens a lot with mamas.
But I think it was actually hitting on something that I wanted to make sure we said, like if you don't have the resources for a babysitter or to hire a nanny or to have daycare either, even if you don't have family members, or I mean, I know like with my oldest, she does love to cook, and that's not anything that I really enjoy anyway. And I have recognized the people in our lives, whether it's fellow moms or family members who do love to cook. And I allow, it's like tapping into that sense of community and saying, well, she's really looking forward to, doing XYZ, or she's going to come hang out and bring her little mini donut maker because she want, and then they can do the baking and they can do the cooking and foster, again, it's like understanding their talents, their natural interests, their natural inclinations, where they might be. Like if you have a kitchen's environment kid, you probably are going to have a kid that wants to be in the kitchen with you. And if you are trying to control all the outcomes, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience with that. So tapping into where you can and allowing those things to but it all starts with like, you have to have that self-awareness of where am I trying to control first, right? It starts with that self-awareness of where is my wounding, or where is it just my natural propensity? And then the other thing I wanted to add here was bringing that into conversation. And I know my kids are small. I'm also hyper aware that subconscious beliefs develop before age 7. So I feel a little bit fortunate to have that awareness, and that I can say things that maybe they're not getting in their mind, but hopefully will anchor in subconsciously, in the sense of mom's different. Mom has her own challenges, right? You like this. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's wrong for you. And just really reinforcing, I'm trying to control this, right? But I also recognize you need this and that you enjoy this. And, I'm working on me, but you have fun, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And even if your kids are past age 7, it's like, again, they're going to have that more of that awareness of like, oh yeah, mom is different. And then what you're doing is also instilling in the same conversation this concept that everybody's different. And that's okay too.
And we all have our own things, and we can be ourselves. We can be our true authentic selves, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
What you said earlier about like seeing your wounding or seeing your being aware of your patterns, right? And that was one of the things, one of the notes I wrote down of how do we even recognize when we're trying to control, right? Because if you would have told me 12 years ago that I was controlling or trying to control, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. Like, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to be a mom, right? I'm trying to do the things I need to do to be a mom. So, to look at that, what does that actually mean to recognize when you're trying to control the situation? And it can look like being super reactionary, right? There's something that a kid does. Maybe your kid spills milk. I'm using milk as an example just for the funniness of it, right? Like don't cry over spilt milk, but I used to be that mom that would freaking cry over spilt milk. I would have
Oh, especially if it's breast milk.
yeah, oh, especially if it's breast milk, right? I wasn't even thinking that. I would absolutely have gotten upset and freaked out and whatever if something got spilt because I needed that control of cleanliness as well. So if you're being reactionary, having knee-jerk reactions, if your kid asks you a yes no question and your immediate answer is no without even thinking about it, right? I still do this sometimes of no because I'm trying to control the situation. That's a sign for me of like, okay, take a step back. What are they asking for? Is it reasonable? Like going through the motions of like
Oh, guilty of that. I'm glad you said that. That's to
uh,
bring that back into my awareness. Thank you.
yeah, of course. We all do it. We all do it, and we're gonna continue to do it, but we can get better at it, right? Um, I
And I
just,
would say through the lens of human design, how are we recognizing these patterns in ourselves? You can look to that non-self theme based on your own type. So anger, frustration, bitterness, and disappointment, where are those feelings depending on your type? Like where is that showing up? And when that's the knee-jerk reaction, right? That's the out of alignment, that's probably where we're trying to control some things.
yeah, that's so good. I'm glad you brought that in because that's so important. It's huge. It's huge. And another way that I was thinking about is when you get anxious when things aren't going your way, right? Like you're saying, you're frustrated when things aren't going away, you're bitter when things aren't going your way. Or maybe you have a plan. This used to be me. You have a plan of what's going to happen. And when something changes, because shit happens and we have to pivot, right? I would get so worked up about it. I would be out of control, just like freaking out and unable to cope with it. So if you find yourself doing these things, then that's a good sign that you are trying to control. And again, there's no shame, there's no judgment, there doesn't need to be any of that. But let's continue to move forward. Now that you're aware, you can do something about it. You can make little shifts, little baby shifts in what you do and how you respond, and creating the space between that. So you're not reacting, but instead you can respond to these things, right?
Yeah. It's being late for me. I'm the only one in my house. Well, my youngest is too young to understand time. I arguably both my kids are, and that's fine. My husband is also not, he has no concept of time, none. And it drives me insane. And it's so funny because this morning I was in full reaction because toddler meltdown, not enough sleep. It was a rough start to the day. My daughter, we got to get her out the door to school, and she is so in the face of intense emotions. It's so beautiful. She is so calm. And it's almost it's innate. I got to tell you just really quick, and then we can start to wrap this up. But when I was having my youngest, I had some birth trauma. So I don't know if that needs a trigger warning for some people, but I'm just going to share a little bit. I was putting her to bed, and I went to roll out of bed. Her mattress was on the floor at the time, and I didn't realize or draw the parallels to being a hypermobile human and being intensely pregnant. And I rolled out, and I tore my uterus tore open, and I was in extreme pain. And I can listen, I'm smiling right now if you're not watching a video, but like I can laugh now. It was just the most like epitome of her. So my husband like starts panicking. He's like, you stay in bed, because I was putting her to bed. And I came in and I called the OB, and we're just having this dialogue, and they're not taking me seriously, and I'm barely able to speak. And he's like in the closet, like grabbing stuff, like we're going to go to the hospital. And finally I said, hey, you can come in here. Cause I knew she was awake, right? She's not going to sleep after that. And she comes in and she walks in with her hands out like this. And she just says, everybody just calm down. We're going to the hospital and we're having a baby. Like everybody just chill out. And it is just the epitome of her. It was awesome.
Love that.
I know the self-awareness. She's just a little angel. Anyway, this morning I'm just in full reaction, right? And then so I'm like, come on, we gotta go. Why don't you have your shoes on? Even though she was ready. She just needed to put her shoes on, but she was getting distracted with something. And this morning she was like, are we gonna be late now, Mom? And I said, yeah, probably, again, like in full
Totally
reactionary mode. And she goes, yeah, we'll be okay though. And it was just such a cue of like, yeah, we will be okay. Like, what is the worst that's going to happen if we are late to school?
Exactly. Yeah.
What is the worst that's going to happen? But it's so hard when you're in that full, like trying to control, getting my son ready. Cause I don't want to have to come back for him after drop off. I want to just take him to daycare on this particular morning. And I know that's changing anyway. It was just such a beautiful reminder, and not all of us have kids that are going to like snap us out. They're probably going to like push us back into more reactionary. But it is just, I don't know, I think just a reminder of like, there are these moments of, if we can be aware of sort of the symptom of us controlling and being in that reactionary state and what that looks like and what are going to be our normal triggers for those things. And then what are the things that, can remind us to come out of that, or how can we work with that and just allow the grace in and know that like, we can't control parenting. You can't control your kids. You really, truly can't. Trying to control them is not healthy, right? Not to make judgment on where you might have already been doing that. But again, just a reminder, where can we invite in more grace? Can we invite in more grace? And the answer is probably yes.
And when you are able to step into that place of not needing to control as much, right, you start to see these changes in yourself. You start to feel more confident as a mom, as a parent. You start to feel like you're actually connecting with your kids rather than like trying to control them. Because when we're trying to control anybody, not just our kids, there's a disconnect there. There's not like a true connection there. So it can change. It just shifts your whole mental state around it. So with all of that said, I feel like we could talk about this for a very long time. Just sharing.
I think it's a running theme we're going to have.
I think so too. If you feel like you need support in this, like you can book a call with me and we can just kind of explore what that looks like. Give you tips for your own personal situation because everybody's different and everything that you're going through is different. So I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends so that we can continue doing this because Bryn and I, this has been really fun for us to just have these kind of conversations and bring human design into parenting. Yeah.
Truly a passion project.
Yeah.
That I think is just beginning to unfold.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm also starting to bring in some chart reading sessions for parents and partners. So not necessarily together, but just to understand the relationship dynamics between through the lens of human design, of course, so that you can start to understand some of these things when we talk about, my daughter has this environment type and you have that, and understanding some of those nuances. So just feel free to reach out. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I love
it. Being here, guys.
Thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Okay, bye for now.